Hey, it's UPB here from OptionMillionaires.com. Thanks for joining me. It's June 15th, Friday. Options trading is over for the week and for the month. Monthly options expired today. It was quadruple witching hour. Ooh, scary. It wasn't scary if you were holding calls, I'll tell you that much. Jimmy Bob in the chat room today was alerting calls left and right, and they all hit pay dirt. LinkedIn $100 calls. Let's just go to the chart and tell you where he was alerting these and what kind of calls they truly turned out to be. He was talking about LinkedIn $100 calls here. LinkedIn was at $97.50, $97.50, and it ultimately closed at $102, hitting a high up here of over $102.25. So down here when he was talking about the 10-cent $100 calls, meaning he thought LinkedIn was going to go at least $100 in the span of one trading session. And he turned out to be right, and then some. An amazing call. LinkedIn closing up over 3%, almost 4% on the day. Those 10-cent calls went from 10 cents to $2.25. So you could have bought 10 for $100, sold them for $2,250 if you bought from bottom to and sold at the top. They opened at 10 cents as well. We had a great move. Also, in another alert from Jim Bob this morning, Netflix. He was getting into the $65 calls when Netflix was at $62 and change. He was anticipating a move back to $65, which it ultimately did, closing up 5% on the day, higher than that just at the close. Amazing call, amazing, mind-boggling. The Netflix $65 calls that he was buying at 10 cents went as high as 87 cents. That's $870. Only a $700% gain. What are you going to do? You can't win them all. Now he's Jimmy Bob's also been on Priceline. Priceline, we know, big mover, great option trade on options expirations. Done this a lot. And had you bought the $655 calls down here at the open, they were going for 5 cents. Nobody wanted them. And if you were smart enough to scoop them up, you were selling them later on for $5.30. To put that into perspective, after Priceline made a 3% move, that's $50 into $5,300, or $500 into $55,000. Depends what kind of risk profile you have there. You want to put 50 in, 500. So either way, if you buy the calls, you were a happy camper on Priceline. How about Goldman Spectacular? Yeah, that's what I call them now. Spectacular. Goldman Sachs started off the day a little slow. It was a little curious because the banks, if they're going to be papering over things, all the central banks, the banks should at least recover some of their losses they've had. Goldman Sachs over $180 a couple of years ago. Now just meandering around and suddenly getting a little jolt today. Goldman Sachs, $95 calls went from 3 cents to 75 cents. If you were just had the foresight right there at 92.80 this morning, a little after 10:30, an hour and 15 minutes into the trading day, and said, Goldman Sachs, it's going to go up another $3 today. Would have been a great call, and you would have been rewarded for it. Turning $30 into $870 if you just bought a little bit. Hey, you go out, say instead of going out to Outback Steakhouse, you said, let me just buy a little bit of Goldman Sachs calls today for $30 plus commission. And then look, later on in the day, you're selling right up here, selling out for $870. You're going to Smith & Lewinsky for the week. And you got some spare change to maybe for next week to play the next rumor from the central banks, or the big non-event next week, or big event. Who knows what's going to happen? We'll get into that some other time, possibly the Sunday night if you're lucky. How about IBM? You wanted to do a blue chipper, just get into a option trade just for the day that was going to expire, and you said, let me take Big Blue. It's a Dow component, very low risk of tanking or spiking, and look what it did today, up 2%, a nice slow steady gain. Had you bought the 195 calls at the low, $1.06, they closed at $4.21, and you were more than able to get in anywhere along the line and put in between 75, 150% gain depending on where you bought and sold. And how about Facebook? I thought $30. Oh my God, something's got to be wrong with this. I thought Facebook was going to $15 at 10, 7, 5, 0, and it ramped. Look at the close. It was just a buying frenzy. Everybody was just loading the boat. And those $29 calls went from 5 cents to $1.05. So people are making money on Facebook. You could have bought 10 of them for $50 at the $29 strike and sold them for 1,000. Later on, had you bought to perfection, either way, a 20 bagger. So if you're buying and selling somewhere in between, you're doing okay. So yeah, those are some of the big gains. We had some great gains last week. Apple, the Apple 565 strike calls went from 30 cents to $5.50. And we also had a couple weeks ago Google. Google made a lot of people some money. If you were positioned for the puts, you could have gotten the 605 strike for 3 cents. They went to $8. That's $30 into $800, or $300 into a lot of money. $30 into 8,000, or 300 into 80,000. Or you could have bought the 610 puts. They went for 5 cents, and they ultimately hit $13.20. That's $50 into $13,200, or 500 into $130,000. How's that? 500 into 130,000. That's all hypothetical. That's buying bottom to top. I don't think anyone would have bought that much. Hey, if you got money to throw around, it's possible. Especially on options expiration, we see a lot of moves. Today was a trend up day. It was everyone was already heading out to the Hamptons by midday. It was very easy to send prices higher. So what are we going to see next week? Well, I just saw some lines come across the wire there. I mean, the banks have been preparing for this at least 9 months, right? And if they haven't, then there's something wrong with them. And they've probably been preparing for the Greece exit for years now. It's obviously been some sort of scenario that we've all been thinking is coming. We knew this papering over. It just can't go on forever. Eventually, well, it's Greece now. Who's next? Spain. But the VIX is telling you that nobody really cares. Look at the late minute just plunge. And look, I have this support line here. It hit major support on the VXX and bounced. But after hours, futures continued to gun higher. And the VXX tumbled to 1811, 1812. So the VIX actually was down, I believe, over 5%. And the VXX was down over 4%. So what this is basically telling you is there's no fear in the market again, because the fear is being taken away from the central banks. The hope now isn't recovery or any kind of GDP or an employment hope. It's just hopes that central banks will continue to paper over everything. Just send liquidity out there, money, dump, print money out of nowhere, just like magic. That's what the market's anticipating, which means equity prices are going to go up. Doesn't matter what's going to happen. We'd have major changes next week, possibly. We have the big Greece vote, and it doesn't matter. It's heads, stocks go up, tails, they go up higher, because one way the vote's going to be good and everything will be fine, or the other way is the central banks are going to step in and make sure everything's going to be fine. So it's not really a marketplace. It's a place where the central banks are trying to keep asset prices higher. Just one more thing to note, and I'll have my update again hopefully this weekend. We have the major break here at SPY 134. If you go back, there's a very significant line here, and I've been watching for it. So this bodes well for the bulls. We had the bear flag here, drop down almost a inverse head and shoulders pattern here, and we pushed above 134 today. So we'll see what happens on Monday. It should be great, interesting. It's going to be exciting next week. Probably a good time to maintain your nimbility. Be nimble. I'm going to probably stay mostly in cash next week, but we'll see. 134 break here. If we get some stabilization on Monday and everything doesn't fall off a cliff, I think it might be a good time to just put a little more money to work on the call side. But we'll see what happens. This is UPB from OptionMillionaires.com. What a great week. What a great day. Join us. Come have some fun. Make some money. Options, the place to be. UPB here. Have yourselves a great weekend, and all those fathers out there, have a happy Father's Day. Goodbye.